And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region on this Friday, January 10th, 2025. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I give you in this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It'll bring you to a website with this map of the continental U.S., Hawaii, Alaska to the lower left, and then the tabs here for the territories. And a quick check of what's going on in the lower 48. We still have two major things. First being the just catastrophic fires in Southern California around Los Angeles. At least the good news since yesterday, late yesterday into today, winds have been much lighter, which is allowing firefighters to make some little gains. However, it looks like the Santa Ana winds could pick up again over the weekend, not as strong as what happened on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning when they were gusting as high as 70 to 100 miles an hour. It looks like over the weekend some gusts of 40 to 50 miles an hour possible, which still is not good news. But here in the Midwest, out through the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, into the Carolinas, Virginia, we have an extensive area of winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories for moderate to locally heavy snowfall. It doesn't take much snow in this part of the country to cause problems. Generally on the order of 3 to 6, locally 8 inches of snow expected, especially up through Tennessee. And southern areas of this, like as you get down into northern Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, up in areas of the Carolinas away from the mountains there, they're going to have an icy mix of some freezing rain and sleet as well. So just very poor travel conditions across this area, the eastern portion of the continental U.S. But here in Alaska, we have a series of wet and windy storms that will be impacting the state this weekend into next week. There could be some moderate to heavy rainfall in areas, which could lead to overflow and flooding of some of the streams, the creeks, rivers, especially because we've had that ice that's sitting there on the streams and rivers, and you get that runoff and it has a tendency to want to overflow on top of the ice. We also have an issue with high winds and the potential for record warmth. There is a core of strong winds associated with moist and very mild air that's going to be riding northward up through the western Gulf, Cook Inland, all the way up to the Alaska Range into the east central areas of the state. So there's a potential even for some record high temperatures, especially later this weekend. And some of the most impactful winter weather, aside from some of the coastal mountains along the Gulf, is going to be over toward the west coast into the western mainland, where the air is a bit colder there. And I'll highlight that in just a moment. Nome, mostly cloudy, 20 degrees this mid-Friday afternoon. Don't worry, you're going to get in on some snow. Winter storm warning is in effect, especially Saturday, Sunday, into early Monday morning. Areas around Nome, Bellevin, especially the higher terrain north of those areas, could pick up 6 to 12 inches of snow with some blowing and drifting snow. Meanwhile, further south and west, we've had a low this afternoon just to the west-southwest of Nunavik Island. So there have been strong southeast to south winds in the Kuskokwim Bay. So Kwagrilingak and areas like Kitnik are under a coastal flood advisory through noon on Saturday. And when high tide comes, because we're near astronomical high tide occurs, the full moon is on Monday. So the tides are going to be higher than normal just due to the fact of the astronomical geometry there with the moon. But water levels along parts of Kuskokwim Bay could be as much as 3 to 6 feet above the normal highest tide levels as we go through later tonight and into Saturday morning. Temperature there 37 degrees. Homer, overcast, mild, 45 yesterday. Picked up some wet snow. Well, now we're going to have to be watching a very strong front that's going to be pulling through this area later Saturday into Sunday morning. And we'll have to watch the spit because, again, we have that potential higher astronomical tide and we get the winds just right coming in. It could impact the spit again, so stay tuned to later forecasts. Valdez is going to see some heavy snowfall in the higher elevations of the mountains. Thompson Pass under a winter weather advisory for snow and blowing snow this weekend. But also, there's going to be a push of very mild air and windy conditions come up through there as well. Temperature at Valdez this afternoon, 37 degrees with kind of a variable ceiling. But looking at what we have in the way of watches, warnings, advisories, special weather statements, this is what's going on right now. We have the coastal flood advisory here around Kuskokwim Bay for southeast to south winds. This low pressure that's sitting out here is causing those stronger winds that will enhance water levels plus at high tide. So we can see water levels 3 to 6 feet above the normal highest tide. This area of the lower Yukon also picking up some areas of lighter snow. And up towards St. Lawrence also as this low and kind of inverted trough sits in this region. But as we go through time, as we go through Saturday into Sunday, early Monday morning, it's an extended period, a couple of days. See periods of light to occasionally moderate to locally heavy snow all through this area of the west. This includes Anvik on up toward Ruby. This is a winter storm watch for especially Saturday evening through late Sunday night, 6 to 10 inches of snow. This area here, Nome, Golovin up to White Mountain. This area here could see 6 to 12 inches of snow with some blowing and drifting snow. Areas also around Norton Sound and along the northern and west side of the Seward Peninsula in on that winter weather advisory, as well as St. Lawrence Island. So active winter weather across this western portion of the state. Meanwhile, there's going to be a secondary low come up out of the North Pacific and a very strong windy front right along Kodiak Island, the Western Gulf, up across the Kenai Peninsula, and then push inland. As that system works its way northward, especially later Saturday into Saturday night and Sunday morning, heavier rains. There is a flood watch here along areas of western Prince William Sound, Whittier, Seward, down along the eastern Kenai. Heavy rainfall could lead to some minor flooding of some streams. And then we also have very strong winds. We could be looking at wind gusts Anchorage hillside approaching 100 miles an hour up there in the Chugach because of this powerful front. Also the Alaska Range. There's a high wind watch right now, wind advisories, but a high wind warning will likely be required for much of the Alaska Range as we go into later Saturday through Sunday. Very strong southerly, southeast to south winds lifting across that region. Winds could gust to 80 miles an hour, and then the downslope on the backside of it could really warm temperatures around Fairbanks, creating gusty conditions here through the upper Tanana Valley, warmer temperatures. And those milder temperatures will spread east-northeastward up along the Alcan border, so be ready for some milder temperatures. Now also, eventually some of that moisture is going to come eastward. Areas of the northern panhandle, the Klondike and the Haines highways could get accumulating snow as we go through the course of the weekend, especially later Saturday and on through Sunday. So stay tuned because there will be additional advisories and warnings issued. Looking at the satellite imagery, so we have, here comes the first of one low. There's another low further south of here that's coming up northward. So there's a couple right there. We have one right here near Nunavik Island. That's what's brought some areas of light snow into the lower Yukon basin here and up in the North Sound. We have this area of rain and gusty winds coming up into the Western Gulf, Kodiak Island, but the really potent storm is down here. So as of this afternoon, there's the first low, just southwest of Nunavik Island with this initial front pushing inland. That's why it's 45 now in Homer, and then down here comes the next low. That low is going to come north quickly and it's going to bring in another front, but this isn't the well-defined one. This is late tonight, early Saturday morning. And by the time we get into Saturday, that system just kind of quickly lifts north and weakens. But here comes the main low. This is going to be the more impactful low because of the wind field around it. This low is going to take a track northward up into the southeast bearing, similar to this one. This one just kind of lags there, keeps some lift going and lighter precipitation, but when this one comes north by Sunday afternoon, boom. That's why we have the winter storm warnings here, Seward Peninsula, and certainly potentially areas of the lower middle Yukon Valley. That's why there's going to be some areas of heavier snow there. But this wind field, as that front lifts north, this is the front as we go through Saturday evening into Sunday morning. We could have some very strong turn-again arm winds ahead of this front. Again, Anchorage hillside, a higher elevation above Anchorage, could have wind gusts of 75 to 100 miles an hour with this kind of feature. So will Thompson Pass, so will the Alaska Range. And that's going to create strong Chinook winds coming down the backside of the Alaska Range with warming temperatures. So those of you all through this region, south central, southeast, up into along the Alcan border, could see much warmer temperatures for a brief time. Some of those could be near record. And then eventually this front will spread some precipitation into the panhandle as we go into Sunday. And that's not the end of it. There are going to be a couple other lows come up out of the North Pacific. And right now it looks like the main aim for some heavier precipitation and wind could be across parts of the panhandle, northeastern Gulf Coast. But that's just getting through this weekend. Looking at temperatures, it's still cold in the north, below 0, North Slope, Arctic coast, as cold as 15 below Kaktovik, still 8 below Fort Yukon. But as we drop southward, readings tonight will generally be above freezing through a good portion of the panhandle, even in the south central as we go up through the Anchorage Bowl and on up toward, say, Wasilla and up to Talkeetna. 39 for the low there at Kodiak City. And then come Saturday, we're going to see temperatures in the 40s, especially through the outer and lower southern parts of the panhandle. We're going to see temperatures above freezing, probably up there toward, just get past Healy, Nenana, on up toward Fairbanks. And even in through the southwest interior, temperatures will likely be rising above freezing, all because of that initial push of some mild air. But then by the time we get into Sunday morning, we're watching the next low come up with this wet, windy low. Those temperatures, with the exception of the northern panhandle like Haines, Skagway, will probably get a little below freezing, but otherwise still above freezing, mid to maybe even upper 30s. Temperatures near or just below freezing, say through the Susitna Valley, east or western Kenai. But then as we get into Sunday, look at these temperatures. We're going to see 40s, maybe an isolated 50 out toward Klawak or Sitka. And certainly an isolated 50-degree reading is not impossible around Kodiak Island or Homer. But we're seeing temperatures hitting 40 up into, as we creep up the Kuskokwim and the Yukon, lower middle Yukon valleys. We're also going to see temperatures in the downslope around 40 there at Fairbanks. And so again, this is just a very mild pattern and a wet one at that, and there will be some periods of heavier rain, especially down here, western areas of Prince William Sound and the eastern Kenai. So as we look further ahead, getting past next weekend, or into next weekend, still looks like temperatures are going to average above normal southwest Alaska, the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians, because we're having a storm track as such pulling moisture northeastward. So right now, the best bet for temperatures to be near or a bit below normal would be here in the northwest, Utqiagvik down toward Kotzebue, Point Hope, Nome. Panhandle might see more typical, closer to normal temperatures, but that still means there could be some systems coming in off the Gulf there. Precipitation-wise, we're still looking, though, for precipitation to average generally above normal across a fair portion of the state, especially the mainland. So again, we are sliding deeper in toward midwinter, and at least here, temperature-wise, we'll start out with this weekend with above normal temperatures, and that trend still holding, especially over the southwest into next weekend.